Welcome to Introduction to Python. Today we're going to be learning about loops. Loops and if statements are very similar except for, as the word implies, it will continually loop the code that's written inside the loop as long as the condition stays true. Okay, so a very simple example is just while. It's a while loop. So while 5 is greater than 4, what do you want it to do? And then you can just print off something. Mr. Swallow, oops, gotta remember quotation marks. Just testing you, make sure you're paying attention. Mr. Swallow is awesome. Okay, let's see what happens. There it goes. As you can see over here on my right side, it is just continually printing it off, and it will continually print off until the end of time as long as this computer has electricity. Okay, why is it going to continually print that out? Because 5 will always be greater than 4. That's never going to change. So this is going to continually print off Mr. Swallow is awesome. So if you're ever having a bad day, you can always just open up your little replet and type this in, and you just kind of have some self-talk and keep having yourself told that you're awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and stop that. So you can just right here stop, and then to clear all of this junk, you can just go right up here to this little X, clear, and you're back to the starting point. Okay. So that's what it does. It's continually looping the code that's inside or behind this colon. Okay. So using something like that that's never going to change is not very probable, not very helpful. So what we usually do is we use variables. So let's set up just a couple variables really quick. Number 1 equals 5. Number 2 equals, let's just do 10. Okay, so what we can do is while number 1 is greater than, while number 2 is greater than number 1, do this. And the same thing's going to happen. It's continually printed off. But now that we have variables, what can we do with variables is we can change the value. Okay, so if I only wanted to print off Mr. Swallow is awesome 5 times, what I can do, number one is equal to, we're reassigning number 1 a new value, number 1 plus 1. Okay, so I'm gonna run it, and then we'll talk about what it's doing. So we'll run it. Number 1, don't forget to name variable exact same. Mr. Swallow is awesome 5 times. Okay, so why is that happening? So let's talk about it. So when this while loop first runs, number 2 is equal to 10, and number 1 is equal to 5. But as soon as it runs, what happens is that when it hits this line of code, number 1 is getting a new value. It's now getting the value of 5 plus 1, which is 6. So the next time it runs, number 1 is now equal to basically 6. So number 2, which is 10, is now still greater than 6. The next time it runs, it goes to 7. Next time 8. Next time 9. When it hits 10, what happens? It's done. 10 is now no longer greater than this variable, which is 10, and that's when it stops running the loop. Okay. So with a lot of different programs, you only want the program to run X number of times. You'll use this in a couple of different programs. But that's the basics of it, is it gives you kind of control of how many times to run something, and it also saves you time with like inputs. And if you wanted to ask the same question multiple times, you could put an input in here, or not favorite number, random number, inputs, let's do ints, inputs, please choose a random number. So what that's going to do now is it's going to give random number, it's going to ask the user for several random numbers. Oops, now I've set up my, messed up my loop there. Please choose a random number, 15, 20, that gives your program a chance to, oops, I took out the number 1 equals number 1 plus 1. It's going to keep running unless I have a place for it to change the value. Okay, so there's that. Well, we'll use this in a couple different assignments. So there's the basics of how to use a while loop. It's just like the if statement. It tests something, and then whatever's after the colon it will do as long as this test is true. So you can type in true, and then it'll continually run till the end of time. But the best thing to do is variables, and then use the variables to make it so the loop only runs a number of times.